Okay. So one question I have for you, I love talking about lead generation. I mean, we all want more leads, right? Leads are awesome. They're the best. Whether we're talking about B2B, whether we're talking about B2C, we all want more leads because that means more business, it means more revenue, it means more growth, right? So my question to you is, what's going on with marketers? We are spending all of our time driving traffic and practically no time trying to generate leads from that traffic. So on average, for every $92 that is spent trying to drive traffic, we're only spending $1 trying to convert it into a lead. So think about that, 92 times more focus, more energy, more money, more resources, more staff, more initiatives, more campaigns focused on driving traffic than on driving leads. So I don't know if this is the case at your company, but I've certainly met, hundreds, thousands of companies through the years, and pretty consistently, I would say 95% of the time, this is very, very true. And so today, what I'd like to do is present this to you as a major opportunity for you to capitalize on. If your competitors are falling into the trap of focusing and over-focusing on driving traffic and then not converting that traffic, it's a great opportunity for you. There we go. So a little bit about myself. So as mentioned, I'm Tom Shapiro. I run an agency called Stratabeat. So my history, I've been in marketing since before anyone even knew what the web was. The first website that I built was in 1994. Just to give you an idea, several years before even Google existed. So I've seen a lot of evolution through the years, and companies that I've helped capitalize on the digital opportunity include a lot of startups, a lot of mid-sized companies, but also companies that you would know like Intel, AT&T, GE, United Healthcare, about 10 different brands at Procter & Gamble, the largest advertiser in the world. So hoping to bring all of that experience to you today. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the fun part. So this is going to be very actionable. I want you to walk away today, and whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's this week, whether it's this month, we're going to give you very tangible, very actionable things to be doing to increase your leads. So the first thing is IP detection. So how many of you are checking who specifically is on your website every single day? Every day. Every day. You should be. You should know exactly who is on your website every single day, because I don't think that anyone in the world could give me a good reason why not, right? You should know exactly who's on your website, especially B2B, right? B2B should absolutely know which companies are on the website. B2C is more challenging, obviously. But with B2B, I would say any B2B marketer should know who is on your website, and you can do that through IP detection software. We had a company come to our website, and then they came again, and they came again. But because we were monitoring their visits through IP detection software, we knew exactly who they were. We knew what they were looking at. We knew which pages. We knew the navigational path that they were taking. We knew exactly how long they were spending on each page. We knew every action that they were taking. And so when we did outreach, because think of this, they never submitted a form. They never called us. So traditionally, you would think, oh, it's a failure, right? The website was a failure. It didn't convert, quote unquote, convert, right? It wasn't a form submission. It wasn't a phone call. We never got an email from them. But because we were using digital IP detection software, we knew who they were. And we reached out to them. And we started a conversation with them. And so the more that they engaged in our website, the more we understood of what they were keenly interested in, so we could drive the conversation accordingly. Any outreach we did, we tracked the links to know exactly which links they were clicking on and which ones they weren't. And so in the end, after 24 visits, and again, they never submitted a form, they never made a phone call from the website, anything like that, we closed them, and they've been a great customer for years now. So the first thing that I want to tell you is don't rely on forms, don't rely on phone numbers, don't rely on email, don't rely on any of that for lead generation. Are those things critical? Yes. Are they helpful? Absolutely. Are they fantastic for lead gen? Yes. But you can take it to a whole other level if you look at IP detection software for going beyond your website, right? Going beyond a form submission, going beyond waiting for them to let you know who they are. So what is this software? So if you're not aware, there's many different packages on the market. We use a package called Lead Feeder, but there's also Lead Forensics, which is also fantastic. And then if you wanted to dive even deeper and capture the person's name and their contact information, so their phone number, their email address, things like that, you can use an application called Lift Certain. It's expensive. It's over $1,000 a month, Lift Certain. But it will get you that level of granular detail on exactly who was on your website, even if they're not in your database. So the difference between IP detection software and marketing automation software, something like a HubSpot or an ActiveCampaign, is, those will tell you who's on your website from your database. But when you use IP detection software, you're going to find out exactly who's on your website, who's not in your database. And it's much more powerful than, say, an ActiveCampaign or a HubSpot. So it will detect many more organizations. It will detect them when they're at home and associate them with their company, things of that nature. So very, very powerful stuff. So it's the very, very first thing that I do every single morning. I check the IP detection software to see who was on the website in the past 24 hours so that we know how to conduct outreach to them. It's very powerful for lead generation. And because you know exactly what they're interested in, you can guide the conversation, you can customize the conversation. Let's look at an example. So here's one visit by one person, okay? They were coming in through Cleveland, Ohio. They found us through Google. And you can see they were looking at a blog post about the ROI of blogging. Then they were looking at a blogging playbook. They went back to the blog post about ROI of blogging. Clearly, they're very, very interested in blogging. So when we conduct outreach to them, we know exactly how to kick off the conversation, right? And we never say that we know that they were on our website or anything creepy like that. We just start a conversation. We say, can we be of any help? Do you have any blogging questions, anything like that? Right? So very, very friendly. Don't sell them on anything. Do not be salesy. Be very friendly and helpful. Just see if you can help them. And it's amazing the conversations that you can start. We have generated millions of dollars in revenue this way. Millions. It's very effective. And a lot of companies still don't know that you can do this and that you should do this and that you should do it every single day. Another thing which is fantastic about the software is that not only can it tell you when a company is on your website, but it can tell you when there are different people at that company visiting your website. So in this case, you can see the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 4 different individuals who are visiting the website all around the same time. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you that they were talking to one another, that they were saying, hey, this is pretty interesting. Why don't you check it out? They were forwarding it around by email probably, right? And so there are a lot of interesting insights that you can gain by using IP detection software. And again, the magical part about all this is you don't have to rely on them filling out a form. It's amazing how you can generate leads very naturally from the people who are really engaged in your website, the people who are most engaged in your website, but they just don't happen to fill out a form. Okay, next, how else can we generate leads? So I want you to answer their questions, but it might not be what you're thinking. So the psychologist Alfred Yarbus ran some studies where he would take a group of people and he would separate them out individually and he would show each of them a painting. And he would show each of them the same exact painting, but before he showed each person the painting, he would ask them a question. So for example, he might say, how old do you think the people are in this painting? And then he would reveal the painting. And that's the middle panel. Their eyes would go immediately to their faces, and they would not look at the rest of the painting. They would only look at the faces. He might ask another person, what status do you think they have in society? And then show the painting, and that's the one on the far right, where they would only look at their clothing and not look at their faces. So depending on the questions that are going through your site visitors' minds at the time that they're hitting your content, they're hitting your website, they're hitting your white paper, whatever it is, You need to know what questions they're asking. You need to think of audience segmentation. You need to think of personas. You need to understand exactly what questions they're asking because as you can see here in these eye tracking studies, they will consume your content differently depending on what's going on in their mind. They will be fiercely focused on getting their questions answered when they hit your content. And so if you do not make it immediately clear to them that you can answer their question, that you're going to answer their question, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. And so you might have a page, you have to be crystal clear who it's for. You have to know exactly who it's for and which questions they're going to have in their mind so that you can answer them. And if you don't, it's fine, but think of it this way. It's totally random. You have no idea whether your content is going to fulfill their objective in coming to that page, that content, that white paper, that blog post, whatever it is. Let's look at some examples. So a really easy way to do this is just have them self-segment themselves. So instead of you coming up with all sorts of sophisticated audience segmentation strategies on your website, when you might not know who exactly is coming, or you might be trying to satisfy multiple audience segments all at the same time, let them self-segment themselves. So here is Asana. So Asana has the audience self-segment. So if you're a marketer, you select, yep, I'm a marketer, and you click into marketing. If you're in sales, you click on sales. If you're in operations, HR, clicks on HR. IT. Let's pretend that we're IT and we want to use Asana for IT management, but we don't know if it's really helpful or not. So we click in, and the experience is all customized to an IT manager. Everything on the page is customized to an IT manager. There's nothing here for a marketer. There's nothing here for a salesperson. There's nothing here for HR. If an HR person came here, they would be highly dissatisfied with this experience. That's how you can generate more leads, by answering their specific questions. So you can see the very, very specific language, the very questions that they're answering are all very IT focused. For instance, requests, bug requests and issue requests, that's a huge part of a developer's job, is dealing with these databases. So you speak to requests, off-track offboarding. Marketer doesn't care about that. Sales doesn't care about that at all. They'd probably abandon the page if you were trying to talk to them about that. Yet, because it's an IT manager and they've self-segmented themselves, you know what questions they have in their mind, and you talk about off-track offboarding. So for anyone who doesn't know what it is, when someone leaves a company, there are a whole slew of security issues. Passwords, accounts that are still open, right? A marketer doesn't deal with that. It's IT who deals with that. And it's called off-track offboarding. And so you can see what Asana is doing. They're making it 1,000% customized to that particular audience segment, making the entire experience just for them, answering the questions that are in their mind. Go back to the paintings, right? We have to answer the questions that are in that specific persona's mind. The page is very long. It goes on and on and on and on. Even the testimonial is IT specific. It's a great example of how to let the audience self-segment themselves and then answer their very specific questions. Here's another example. So this is a website that helps you choose marketing automation software. What they do is they have a wizard on the homepage which helps you figure out what you want to get out of the website. So for instance, if you're trying to find the best marketing automation software, you go through a set of Q&A where you're saying, okay, what type of business am I? Am I an agency? Am I a large enterprise? Am I nonprofit? And you go through this whole wizard, narrowing down specifically what would be most effective for you. So it's customized exactly for you. And it's very, very effective. When we have built wizards for our clients, it's very effective. You get higher conversion rates using wizards because people get more engaged. Once they start, they tend not to stop until they're finished, and you can capture their email at the end of the process. So I know when P&G, this was years and years ago, but we were doing a project with P&G where we did a wizard, 85% conversion rate. It's insane, right? 85, I mean, we're happy if we get a 5% conversion rate, right? 85%. So wizards can be very, very effective as long as you use them correctly, right? As long as you're using them to customize the answers for that particular visitor. So where is our question cubes? Okay, great. So I'd like to ask you, what are the specific questions that any of your audience segments are asking as they land on your site? So anyone want to share with the group? And bonus points if you can compare one audience segment to another. Okay, we're a little shy. Oh, you go? Great.
There you go. I work for a hospital, so a big question is, how do I get to this doctor's office?
Great. Amazing. Awesome. And then can you think of a different audience segment who would be coming to the site or reading content of yours that might have a different question?
A lot of it would be reputational, like, is this a good hospital to go to? You know, my doctor recommended me, now I'm checking it out. Is it like a high quality hospital to get like a surgery?
Perfect. Love it. Thank you. So you can see that, honestly, I don't think I've met a marketer yet who has documented the specific questions running through their audience segments' minds. Like, they know the audience segment, right? They know audience segmentation. They know the personas. But how many actually document the specific questions running through their minds? Very, very few marketers. So if you do it, you'll have a leg up on your competition. You'll be more effective at messaging your audience. Your content will be more customized for what they're particularly interested in. Okay, so another way to generate leads is using original research, and then not only using original research, but also atomizing that research. So slicing and dicing it into many different forms. So I want to ask you a question. Is this a compelling title of a blog post? What you need to write the best headlines in 2021. Pretty good? Pretty good? Yeah. Kind of okay, right? Kind of okay. How about this? 100 million articles analyzed what you need to write the best headlines. So much better, right? So much better. We as human beings, we're hardwired to love this stuff. We love research. We love original research. We will click through on this. We won't click through on the other. Original research is something that has many different benefits, both soft benefits as well as very hardcore lead generation benefits. You know, on the audience insights side of things, it does give you the opportunity to dig deep into audience insights and voice the customer. You understand your audience more deeply. You're also able to generate content that absolutely no one on the planet can have, right? It's proprietary, it's yours. You can produce content that your competitors cannot produce. And the reason being is, once you produce it and once you're loud about it, everyone's going to know that they're copying you, right? So you're building a moat around your content marketing as well. So it can be very, very powerful. If you do this on an annual basis, where they know that you're coming out with this proprietary survey every single year on this particular topic, you own that topic in your industry. You own it. No one can touch it. Again, building a bigger moat around your content marketing. It's very powerful. And then on the hardcore results side, you know, more leads, 55% more leads when you use original research and original data, greater social shares, more media mentions, more links, more mailing list subscribers. So this research was done by BuzzSumo and Mantis Research, and what they found was they asked those who were conducting original research whether they were planning on continuing to do it the following year. 88% said yes. 88%. You know, as marketers, you know, we learn what works and what doesn't. We get rid of what doesn't work. Clearly, companies are finding this to be very effective. And then, you know, how effective is it? So here we can see that 61% of respondents who were conducting this type of research found it to either meet their expectations or surpass their expectations. So the majority were finding it very, very valuable. And here's a big mistake that a lot of marketers make when they do original research. They'll come out with the survey results, right? They'll do a press release, and then they might come out with a report, and usually that's about it. Maybe they'll do a blog post, maybe. I see this time and time and time again. However, if you do original research, you should be disseminating that content in many different ways, many different shapes and sizes and formats. You can do blog posts, you can do infographics, you can do social sharing, you can do articles, you can do press releases, you can do reports, you can do slide shares, videos, podcasts, on and on and on. A fantastic example of this, and I write about her in the book, Rethink Your Marketing, Rethink Lead Generation, is Ginger Shimp at SAP, sitting over there, who does a phenomenal job, probably the best job I've ever seen of atomizing content. So with one business concept, on certain campaigns, on one business concept, she and her team have developed over 650 pieces of content. Pretty good. So definitely look towards not only a press release, maybe a blog post, but all the different ways that you can be creating content based off of one database of proprietary data or one concept. Here's a great example. Scott Brinker, who does this survey, and then he creates this infographic every single year, is looking at the marketing technology landscape. And it's very, very popular. And so what he does is, he'll have different publications around the country who will cover this. He has the entire marketing industry abuzz about this. And so he has an army of people promoting it for him. And so the more that, as I had mentioned, the more that you can do something annually, and you do it in a very, very creative way, not just a press release, not just a blog post, but do something in a very creative way, and you slice and dice it, and you come up with different ways of disseminating it, the more that you're going to get other people promoting it, other people excited about it, other people looking forward to it each year. Very powerful for marketing and lead gen. So what I would recommend to you is control your own data. And if you don't have any developers on your team, it doesn't matter. There are so many applications today that enable you to maintain and build a database. And it's a real database. It's not just an Excel sheet. It's not just a Google sheet. It's a real database. So we use Airtable. It's very, very easy. Non-developers can use it. Non-coders can use it. And it enables you to kind of take a spreadsheet and put it on steroids, right? Because you can filter it and sort it in so many different ways to make it useful. And so I would encourage you to collect your own data. Come up with ideas for things that would be really interesting for your audience. Do the proprietary research. Own your own data. Have your own database. It's incredibly valuable. And that way, when you have that database, it's good not only for that campaign, but you can continue using it throughout the year, right? You can continue updating it. You can continue using it. Very effective. So we did this for one of our clients in the healthcare space, where we ran a survey. It was all about nurses, okay? And we partnered with one of the largest websites in the industry, nurses.com, to get the word out about this. We got 3,600 respondents to our survey. 3,600. So we felt like that was a good sample size of data. And the key was, we didn't just go with quantitative questions, right? And a lot of surveys is all quantitative data, right? Why is that? Why is that? It's because it's easy, it's convenient, it's efficient, it saves time. You don't have to put thought into it, right? What we did was, we did mostly quantitative, and then again, we had 2 qualitative questions for them. We wanted them to tell their stories, and we gave them as much space as they wanted. It was the most non-scalable thing we could do. But that was the goal. That was where all the gold was, in their stories. Their stories were phenomenal. It made the research. It made people cry. It changed everything. And so when you do proprietary research, don't only rely on quantitative data. Dig for the gold. Get people telling stories. Have them explain something deeper level, which only you're going to have, only you're going to capture. And also that way you're going to evoke an emotional response when they're reading your research, and it's not just data. You're going to put a face to it. So, we got national publicity for this. We were in various publications around the country. We created 5 different blog posts, all with different insights coming out of this. All 5 were the top 5 for the client for the entire year. We created SlideShare, got over 30,000 views of the SlideShare. So on and on and on. We did infographics and got a lot of publicity. But here's one thing which we didn't plan for. We didn't try to do, but it happened. A TV studio called up and said, hey, this is really interesting. Could we have the CEO on and we'll interview her? And we said, sure. And then she goes on TV, and another TV channel or another TV show is watching. And they call her up and they say, hey, we saw you on that show. Can you come on our show? This happened 5 times that year. So through one survey, we did one survey about nurses, and the CEO of our client was on national TV 5 times that year. You never know where it's going to take you. You never know. And that was just from one survey. Okay, online tools. So this is incredibly powerful in terms of lead generation, also incredibly powerful in terms of generating traffic and generating backlinks, which is fantastic for SEO. So you get that added benefit as well. So if you create online tools that your audience can engage with, very, very powerful. So here is a tool by CoSchedule. It's a software company. They create marketing scheduling software, and they have a headline analyzer. So if you have a headline for a blog post or a tweet or whatever it might happen to be, you can run it through this tool and it will grade you and help you. So if you do this, they'll send you the results, but they need your email first. Automatic lead gen, right? And they've already gotten you into the process, and just our brains are hardwired. We don't like stopping in the middle of a process. We like completing processes. That's why wizards are so effective as well. And online tools play into that in the same exact way. And so it's very, very effective for lead generation. And also, people find tools to be incredibly helpful. And so, again, they tend to talk about tools, they tend to share tools, they tend to write about tools, they tend to create lists about tools. And so it's fantastic for backlinks, which help SEO, which in turn help your lead generation as well. HubSpot has a tool. There are lots and lots of online tools. HubSpot has one to help you create a persona, right? You want to build a persona, you can use HubSpot's tool. There are many different website page load time testers. So a speed test, and this makes sure that your pages are loading really fast. And so again, in this case, it's WP Engine. I think that they are the largest WordPress hosting provider in the entire world. They have more WordPress developers than anyone else in the world, and they have this simple page where you can go and check out and see if your page is fast or slow, and if it's slow, what you can do about it. But they're going to get your email address as part of the process. So it's all lead gen. So I want you just to take a minute and think, what tool could my company use? What tool could my organization use? What could we do to help us with lead generation? So just take a minute and just brainstorm. Just brainstorm ideas. And if you don't want to brainstorm ideas about online tools, brainstorm ideas about proprietary research. What proprietary research could you be doing? Because that's just as powerful. So I'll give you a minute.
I don't mean to throw you, but obviously a new thing that, well, not totally new. Oh, I'm so sorry. I love the box. Okay. Obviously a new thing, not too new, but over the last 3 or 4 years, that people have been looking at is sustainability, whether they're working in a B2B space or a B2C space. So are you aware offhand of tools that are looking at how companies can optimize their sustainability, whether it's, the circular economy or some other aspect of sustainability? So that's one thing I haven't actually looked for, but you said to brainstorm, so. So this is your fault.
So I'm not, from a lead generation perspective, I'm not aware of a company that's focusing on sustainability for lead gen. Obviously, a lot of companies have a lot of sustainability initiatives. Those are fantastic.
Because, there are a lot of people who will make their decision based on how sustainable the company is, and so I see now when you go to a lot of sites, they are self-promoting their own sustainability efforts.
Absolutely.
So that's where the question was coming from, tied to lead gen. Are they actually paying attention to that when they're making their decision to pursue a relationship?
I think that's great. And I haven't seen this, and maybe it exists, I don't know. But if I was, let's say, a retailer and I was selling jackets, I would have some type of an online tool to compare how many trees are you going to save by purchasing our jacket versus the average jacket on, out there. I would absolutely do that. It's an interesting question because, you do see total cost of ownership calculators, right? You see those a lot online. So those types of online tools are very prevalent. They're bottom of the funnel types of tools as opposed to top of the funnel. But they're really effective. And I could definitely see more companies having a total cost of ownership from an environmental perspective, right? Yeah. Okay, so everyone had a chance to brainstorm. So where is that cube? Where's the cube? All right, so who would like the cube? And please share with the group any ideas you have for online tools or proprietary research that you have.
I toss it, okay? Hi.
Hi.
I'm Mandy. We work, my colleague and I work in Bermuda at an insurance company, so healthcare, home, property, and these kinds of things. We have a problem at the moment where people underinsure their homes. So, say your house is worth $1 million, you only insure it for $800,000. And what they don't realize is when a claim is made, even if it's under the $800,000 threshold, you don't get that full insurance. You only get 80% of your claim because you chose to underinsure your house. So I was thinking it could be useful to have a tool where people input the value of their home, the value they plan to insure for, and see how that puts them out of pocket when claims come.
I love that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I'm scared.
Any other ideas? Any other tools or proprietary research that you would think would be really effective for lead gen?
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Brooke with B Squared Media, and we just did some research last year on how the pandemic affected online customer care. So that's something that we did, which was great, but I would love to figure out how to formulate a tool to help companies. We have like a social media mystery shop for companies that have social ed customer care, right, for acquisition and retention type strategies. But I would love to come up with, and I'm still brainstorming, some sort of tool that would help assess them even previous to the shop, right? Like what if you're just kicking the tires and you want to understand where you might fit with your social ed customer care? I would love to come up with, if anybody has any ideas, please come to me. Or I'll talk to you, Tony. But that's what I have to say.
Awesome. Anyone else? Any ideas you'd like to share with the group? Okay. So let's talk about behavioral intelligence. So show of hands, how many of you are using behavioral analytics on your content, on your website, or wherever, on your blog? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so a few of you, but the vast majority are not. So for anyone who is not, you're in for a treat. You're in for a massive treat. This is so effective. It's crazy effective if you use it. If you use it regularly, it can transform your content results. It can transform your website results. And one thing which is really interesting is I know of a lot of companies that do use behavioral analytics and behavioral intelligence, but it's very, very rare when you find them using it on their content. And what we find is it's incredibly valuable when using it on your content. It will tell you exactly what's resonating and what's not. It will tell you exactly where there's friction and where there's not. It will tell you where they're ignoring your content and where they're paying attention. Why wouldn't you use it on your content? It boggles my mind. So I'm very excited to share this with you. So behavioral analytics does a bunch of different things. It does scroll mapping, it does heat mapping, it does click mapping, it does attention mapping, it does video recordings of your site visitors. So we'll go one by one through each of these different things. So with something like scroll mapping, we want to see exactly how far down the page your site visitors or your content readers or your viewers are going. So this is to the exact pixel. We can discover whether they're going 30% down the page, 52.5% down the page, or 100% down the page. So in this particular example, we're looking at a company that has a variety of different scores. So the top score there is the home page, and then the others are their inside pages. The inside pages are really impressive. 76%, 77%, 64%, 76%. I mean, those are very, very high scroll rates, very successful. So you might think, wow, so the top line is the homepage. You might think, wow, their homepage must suck. No, actually, the homepage is doing its job, right? What's the objective of the homepage? To drive you to a deeper page, right? To drive you to a more specific, more granular, more focused page, right? So the homepage is working, and then the rest of the site is working. So it isn't just, oh, if they scroll a lot, the page is successful. We have to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. We need to look page by page by page. What's the objective of the page, right? If there's a form at the top of the page, we don't want them scrolling all the way down the page unless they want to. But the more important thing is that they're filling out the form. So here's an inline CTA, right? Captivate your audience is the inline text-based CTA. So it's really important for us, and this is just a blog post. This is a simple blog post. This is a totally simple form of content. You can apply this with your blogging as well. So we want to find out, okay, how many people are even seeing our CTA, right? So in this case, it's 62%. We're happy with that, so we leave it where it is. But what if it wasn't 62%? What if it was 20%? What if it was 15%? Then we would move the placement of the CTA, right? We'd move it. If it was a really critical CTA, we would move it up the page. Or we would figure out something different to do towards the top of the page to drive more scrolling, right? So this gives you insights as to whether your content is guiding them to action or whether it's just content for the sake of having content. So it's really effective, and you can do this with any type of CTA, and it's really important, whether it's a visual CTA, whether it's like this and it's inline, it's text-based, whether it's a pop-up, any type. But you want to make sure that they are seeing your most valuable CTAs, and hopefully those are most valuable to them. They want them to be contextually relevant to them. And so this works for everyone. It gives them a better experience, but enables you to make sure that your CTAs are being seen. Another way of using behavioral intelligence is click and heat mapping. So we've all seen heat maps, but how do you use them? So what you want to do is you want to see what they're interested in, where they're spending their time, and where they're not. Because it's really surprising sometimes when you care very much about a topic and you find out that they don't. They're not spending any time on it. So this is a fantastic tool to discover, your masterpiece of a content piece, right? Which pieces of it are they most interested in? And if they are more interested in certain aspects than others, more interested in certain topics than others, maybe you need to rearrange your content. Maybe you need to delete some content that they're not paying attention to, that they're skipping over, right? And substitute it with something related to what they are interested in. So this is very, very effective. And again, we see this with product pages, we see it with service pages, we see it with home pages all the time. Yet when we ask new businesses that we meet with, hey, are you using this on content? Like, why would we use it on content? But it's incredibly effective. It's incredibly effective. You can use it anywhere. Home page is great, product page is great, service page is great, any type of content, fantastic. It really works. So also, another big aspect of behavioral analytics is understanding where there's friction and where it's a really great experience, right? We want them to enjoy the experience on our website. We want them to enjoy the experience reading our blog. We want them to enjoy our content hub, right? But how do we know? We had a customer one time who, so that we brought them on, they're an enterprise software company, and as soon as we brought them on, they started bragging to us about how popular their content hub was. And they're like, yeah, we have the best content resources in the industry. Check them out. Check out how many we have. And they said, look at Google Analytics. Check out how many page views we have. And we did. And we said, yeah, that's fine. Can we do the behavioral analytics? And they said, sure, go ahead. We did. And even though it was one of the most quote unquote popular areas of the website, had tons of page views, guess what we found? Everyone hated it. Everyone hated it. There was no scrolling, no clicking, there was no engagement, no one was spending any time paying attention to anything on the page. And so they had all these resources, and yeah, they had page views because people thought that they would be interested in it, right? They were interested in the idea of getting resources on those topics. And when they landed there, they hated it. Now, this was for several reasons. I mean, their design was unprofessional. It was pretty bad. It was unorganized. It was difficult to find things. But, try explaining that to them when they were looking at Google Analytics. And so you cannot rely on Google Analytics to understand whether your content is successful or not. And I want to double down on that. If your organization is using Google Analytics to determine whether your content is successful or not, you're doing it wrong. And I apologize for saying that, but it's true.
That's crazy.
You have to use behavioral analytics as well. You have to layer that in. Just like our new client, right? They were so proud of their content hub, so proud of it, yet it was a disaster. Think of it this way. Their content hub was doing more damage to their brand than good. They should have deleted it. They should have wiped it off of their website. It shouldn't have existed because people were coming to their content hub and hating it, and that was then associated with their brand. And that was the brand experience was, oh, wow, this stinks. I'm going to abandon the site. And that was the brand experience. So you can see how important this is. It's more important to understand the experience on the page and whether you're delivering what they are going to appreciate, what's going to make them fulfilled, what's going to fulfill their objectives, and when what's going to lead to them having a good brand experience, becoming a lead, engaging with you, spending more time with your brand, wanting to come back and spend even more time with your brand, right? And that's why you can't rely on Google Analytics. Google Analytics does not provide all of this rich behavioral data for you, but it's the behavioral data where the gold is. It really indicates what you need to change. It's very actionable. Google Analytics is not actionable. Behavioral data is. It tells you exactly what to change on your site. So let's say I want to take a bird's eye view, and I want to understand where are people having a good experience on my website, and where are they running into a lot of friction, they're frustrated, they're not liking it, they're confused. So I can, in 5 seconds, I can see exactly which pages are producing a good user experience and which pages are producing a horrible experience. And it's called friction scores. So which pages cause friction, which pages it's very smooth, seamless, intuitive, and they know exactly what to do and they're doing it. And so in this case, we can see very quickly, where are the happy site visitors and the unhappy site visitors, and then we hone in on the unhappy site visitors, right? Because that's where we can optimize the website or the content, fix the problem, fix the friction, eliminate the friction, and produce a fantastic user experience, right? So what would be friction? What would be an unhappy site experience? So I'll just give you 3 examples. How about rage clicking? Where I think we've all done it. we think it's clickable. And we click, nothing happens. And so what do? We click again and again and again and again and again and again. That's just how we operate as human beings. That's behavioral data. You're not going to get that out of Google Analytics. What about click errors? It is actually a click, right? It is a link. and someone clicks on it and it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, or it doesn't work, or for some other reason it's click error. So that's very frustrating. That's another form of friction on the page, right? What about mouse outs? Does anyone know what a mouse out is?
Sits idle.
What is it?
It just sits idle.
Not exactly. Yes. So your mouse goes off of the screen because we think with our cursors. And so when your cursor goes off the screen, guess what? You're not paying attention to the content. So if you're not paying attention to the content, that's bad for us as content marketers, right? That means they're not reading our brilliant intro. They're not reading our CTAs. They're not taking action, right? They're not behaving, right? This is all behavioral data, right? So they're not behaving in a way that shows a positive user experience. They're talking with a colleague. They're grabbing a cup of coffee. They're focused on a magazine that's sitting on their desk. They're not paying attention to our content. How dare they, right? Yes?
What metrics do you use to decide when to change your content? For example, with direct mail, somewhere like 300,000 users or so, and then you begin testing. But with the results that you're seeing here, how many users give you a sample to make a decision to change your layout of your page or whatnot?
So it totally depends on the company, because with some companies, you can generate thousands and thousands of data points in a day, and with others you can't. With B2B, for example, where it's a high-priced item, it's a long sales cycle, if it's a 12-month sales cycle, you are going to have low traffic, right? That's just the nature of the beast. And so it depends on the company, it depends on the brand, it depends on what you're selling. So what we would say is you want a minimum of thousands, right? You want to be in the thousands. I've seen companies try and make decisions based on less than that, and that's too random. It's too random. On the other hand, it's not one size fits all, because everyone has such different volumes of traffic. What we would say is don't base it off of a day, don't base it off of a week. Minimum, base it off of a month, right? Because there are so many behaviors that could be different if it's a Monday versus a Friday, whether it's right before a holiday or right after a holiday. There's so many situations that could be exactly that, situational, right? So always have a sufficient sample size. I think that's an excellent question. Always have a sufficient sample size. It's always difficult getting clients to be patient enough to wait that long, but it's really important to have a sufficient sample size when you're looking at the data. Now, also, another thing that's really important is you need to slice and dice the data. Do not look at first-time visitors to your website the same as returning visitors, because their behaviors are going to be different. A first-time visitor, they're figuring things out. Someone who's returning to your site, they already have the navigational path. They know how to find what they want. And so it's unfair, and it's apples to oranges comparing the two. So there are a lot of different ways that you do have to slice and dice the behavioral data. First time versus a returning visitor. Mobile versus desktop, completely different behaviors, right? Even on a tablet, completely different behaviors. And also think about this. I've seen a lot of companies make this mistake where they don't segment the geography when they're looking at the data. So they might be looking at GA data, and they'll just look at the data and they'll make conclusions. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. If you sell in the United States, you have to look at data from people who are visiting from the United States. If you sell in Europe or Asia or Latin America or Africa, wherever it is, same thing. We're dealing with a company whose their number one market in the world was Japan, and they were looking at aggregate global data. I said, well, what are your takeaways from that? They're like, oh, this and this and this. I said, well, did you ever look at the Japanese data? No. So, well, why don't we take a look? And so you're going to see different behaviors coming from different cultures as well. And so if you see certain traffic from Japan, they're probably going to behave a little differently than, say, those coming from the US. So there are many different ways that you must slice and dice the data. So I'm giving you very simple direction here in terms of looking at scroll rates, looking at click rates, looking at attention rates, right? Looking at any of these behavioral metrics. But the thing that you must do with any of these is make sure you're segmenting the data in a way that matches your specific audience. Because if you don't, then it's not going to be clean data, and you might not get the right insights in analyzing the data. So you can see, how friction events are going to be indicators of a bad experience or a frustrating experience or a less than ideal experience is something that we don't want. And so you want to be looking at all of these different things. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Not only do you want to look at the quantitative data, but you want to look at the qualitative data as well. So the quantitative data can be aggregate, right? And this is really interesting too. And it's different than Google Analytics. With Google Analytics, you are going to get aggregate data, right? You are just going to get aggregate data. You can slice it, you can segment it, you're still getting aggregate data. With behavioral analytics, it's better because you can actually go down to the individual visitors. So you can look at aggregate data, which is great, because then you get the trends of what are the behaviors on your site. But then you can also, if you're interested in a specific area, let's say I want to see traffic from the Philadelphia area, right? And I want to see what those users are doing on the site, how they're behaving. Maybe we have a campaign directed to Philadelphia. We can segment the database just to look at Philadelphia data. Or let's say that we can figure out, this IP address is pretty obvious it's coming from Walmart's headquarters, right? And so then we can look at, okay, what's Walmart doing on our website? And so we cross-reference IP detection software with behavioral data to figure out what individual companies are doing on our clients' websites as well. And you can do this. You marry up the IP addresses, right? You marry up the cities and the time of when they're visiting. So the IP detection software is the first thing we talked about today, right? And then you marry it up with behavioral data, and it is a really powerful 1-2 combo and provides you data that I guarantee you your competitors are not looking at. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff. Session recordings. I love session recordings. So this is what it sounds like. You are actually taking a video recording of your site visitors on your site. So you don't see their faces, you don't see the coffee on their desk or anything creepy like that. You see their screen, right? You see what's happening on the screen. You do have to turn it off for Europe with GDPR. You cannot do this without their consent. But in the US, you can do this. In other countries, you can do this, where you're recording their screen. So everything that they're doing, you can see exactly what their navigational path is. Even without clicking on anything, you can see the navigational path. You can see where their cursor is on the screen at all times. You can see when they're clicking. You can see when they're hovering. It's really interesting. It'll even show you when they go and get a cup of coffee. It'll indicate, they're gone for 5 minutes, and it'll skip ahead. So it doesn't get you bogged down with garbage data where, obviously they're not paying attention because they're off getting a coffee. They just left your screen up. And so these white lines, does everyone know what these white lines are? Yep, it's your cursor, right? It's your cursor. So we think with our cursor, right? We were talking about that with the mouse outs. And so this is showing someone on a website and how they're navigating through the page qualitatively, right? How their cursor is moving. Now, so this is the Stratabeat blog. This is an example of a blog post. Typically, what we find as the behavior in our website is our users will go down, and then they'll go up, and then they'll go down, and then they'll go up. So it's very vertical. It's very vertical in nature. But check this out. What's happening here? They're going all over the place. They're going berserk, right? They're going to the right, to the left. They're going diagonally. They're going all over the place. It took us a while to figure out what in the world was happening. We thought someone in the office must have told a joke or something, But actually what it was anytime that there was a video, they would get more engaged. And as we're engaging with our computer and our screen, we tend to lean in, we lean out, we move to the side, and we don't pick up on that. We don't realize we're doing it at the time, but that's how we interact with our computers. And so this person was clearly more engaged in the content because unconsciously, right? They were just, or subconsciously, they were just moving their cursor all over the place, and it was because of the video. Wherever we had a video in the blog, they were more engaged, they were moving around, they were spending more time there, their cursor was going to the right and left, not only up and down. And so it was very interesting for us. It was a clear indication to us we need more videos in our blog if we want more engagement. And so it's just kind of interesting how the qualitative data can reveal certain things that the quantitative data can't. We once created a wizard for a client in the financial services space. And the conversion rate on the wizard was very high, except when we started looking at the video recordings, there was a major problem. We had a calendar. You had to pick a date as part of the wizard. And we thought, oh, well, we'll develop a calendar widget to make it super easy for them just click on a date. Easy, 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 right? And we forced them to do this rather than manually entering a date, because that's a lot of action, right? That's manual. It takes more effort. And so we wanted to make it easier for them. Well, guess what? That isn't what they wanted. So what we found was they were still trying to type it in manually. They were trying to type the date in manually, even though you couldn't. You could not. And they were still trying to do it anyway. And the only way we found that out is through video recordings of their screen. So we could see the frustration that they were going through in this widget. There was literally no other way we would have found that out. No way. We couldn't find it out through Google Analytics. We couldn't find it out even through heat mapping, right? I mean, we needed to see them in action trying to do this and getting frustrated and not knowing what to do, right? And then what we did was we went in and we changed the calendar widget within this workflow. And we said, okay, you can either use the widget to pick a date, or you can type the data in any which way you want. We're not even going to require what format it has to be in, right? Obviously, certain downsides for data collection in that scenario, but our conversion rate went way up because for some reason, people didn't want the easy way. They didn't want to just click on a date. They wanted to type it in. There's no way in the world we ever would have found that out otherwise. So I really do encourage you to use the video recordings, because you will uncover friction, you'll uncover frustrations of your site visitors. And again, this can be on a product page, it can be on a service page, it can be on your homepage, and it can be in any type of content. You'll never find this stuff out unless you're actually recording it.
That's cool.
Lots and lots of fantastic behavioral intelligence tools. So if you're a smaller, mid-sized organization, we love MouseFlow. It's the one that we use the most, but also, they're all fantastic. We've used VWO a lot of times. Full Story is very powerful. If you're, say, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, you're probably going to want to use Decibel. Decibel is more enterprise level. It's more expensive, but it's very, very robust, very sophisticated. It's excellent, but probably out of the budget of, say, a smaller firm. But any of these are fantastic. If you use any of these, it's going to help you. So on the topic of behavior, behaviorally triggered CTAs. So we love using these. So in our blog, we're constantly running different behavioral tests. If they do this, then let's show them this CTA or that CTA, or this is how we're going to orchestrate our CTAs and sequences. And so for one test, we wanted to see, okay, if we force them to go 70% down a blog post, and then we ask them to join our mailing list, are they going to react positively to that? Because our blog posts are really long. They're long form posts. They might be 2, 3, 4, 5,000 words each. It takes a long time to read one of those. One can take you, 15 minutes. And so if someone's getting 70% of the way there, down the page, we feel like, okay, they like the content, they're engaged, let's ask them to join the mailing list. When we did that one change based off of their behavior, and think of it this way, we're basing it off of their digital body language. When you're interacting with someone in real life, you're basing your actions, the way you talk to them, based on their body language, right? A lot of the times, that's what we're doing. We're getting mental cues, we're getting physical cues, and then we're responding accordingly in order to have a good conversation and in order to have a good relationship with them. It's the same exact thing digitally. You want to read their digital body language. And this is how you can do it, is basing different behavioral CTAs on what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it. So you base it off of their behaviors. So you see it's a common theme in what we're talking about today with lead generation. A lot of it is based off of behaviors. Why? Because it's so darn effective. It is so effective. They're basically telling you, subconsciously, what they're interested in, what they like, what they enjoy, what they want next. So in this case, let's go back to our blog post. We set up a test, right? We're going to hit them with a CTA, join our mailing list after going down the page. 70%. Our opt-in rate jumped up 300% with that one test alone. So it's not always going to be like that, but that's the power of basing CTAs off of behavior. And you want to test and test and test. What was the last page that they were at before coming to this page? That's going to indicate what they're interested in, so you might show them a different CTA. If they don't click on this CTA and they go to that page next, you want to orchestrate what CTA they should see on that page. Right? So instead of just having site-wide CTAs that are not contextually relevant, right? Make everything completely contextually relevant to that specific page, but also based on their behaviors. When you combine behavioral intelligence with contextual relevance, it's a very, very powerful thing for lead generation. So, contextual CTAs. How often are you on a website and you're hit with a CTA and it has nothing to do with what you're reading right there? All the time, right? A lot of companies will have CTAs which are site-wide or section-wide that are generic, or it might be because it's the latest white paper that they're offering, so they push it on everyone, right? What you want to do is have everything that you're offering in your lead generation process highly contextually relevant. Let's take a look at this. So if we have a blog post where the blog post is all about, okay, transform your blog into a lead generation engine. So we're talking about blogging, and we're also talking about lead generation. So what CTAs would be relevant for this particular page that might be completely irrelevant on other pages? When you go down, ready to drive more leads, right? It's 100% in alignment with what's on the page. That is absolutely critical. If you want more leads, if you want higher conversion rates, this is how you do it. This is low-hanging fruit for you. This is very actionable for you. And it doesn't have to be the same CTA, the same visual format. You can change it up. In fact, I would encourage you to change it up. The human brain is hardwired to, one, love surprises. We love being surprised. Another thing is, the neuroscientist Carmen Simon wrote a whole book about this, Impossible to Ignore. It's a great book. It's an amazing book, Impossible to Ignore. And what she says is our brains are a prediction engine. We are dealing with information overload all the time, right? All the time. And so what we're trying to do as human beings is to filter out with our old brain, the fight or flight brain, is to filter out, okay, can we ignore it? Can we ignore it? Can we ignore it? Because our brain is craving to ignore as much input as possible. There's just too much information coming in. And so the more that you mix things up, the brain cannot ignore it. The brain cannot ignore it. And what does that do? It forces the person to pay attention. It forces them to engage with your brand. It forces them to have a brand experience, whereas otherwise, they're going to be daydreaming. They're going to be thinking about what they're going to have for dinner. They're going to be thinking about other work that they have to do, whatever it might happen to be. So change it up. Have visuals, have text-based CTAs, have different types of CTAs on the same page. Exit intent CTA. So when they're leaving your site, hit them up with the CTA, right? And what I love about what Opt-in Monster does is they do something very, very clever here. It's not just, download our ebook before you go or something like that, but they say, hey, do you want to get started with us? Or they leave it open-ended. Sometimes you don't know what you want, right? Sometimes you just have questions. So they say, fine, let's have a conversation. If you have questions, just click, I have questions, right? And that way, it's not as intimidating to them. They're not committing to something as serious, right? And they're being very honest. They don't know if they're interested in starting with Opt-in Monster or not. So it's a fantastic way to drive leads, right? To drive leads even when the person is not ready to convert, quote unquote, convert. Just to offer to answer their questions. It goes back to what we were saying with the IP detection software. When we do the outreach, what do? Any questions? Right? That's what we ask them. We just say, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions about this? Do you have any questions about that? Based on what they specifically were interested in. Evoking an emotional response. So this gets into the area of neuroscience and looking at how we as human beings are just constructed, how our brains are constructed. So the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio ran some really interesting studies where he looked at people who had damage to the part of the brain that triggers emotions. So these people couldn't feel angry, they couldn't feel happy, they couldn't feel sad, they could not feel emotions because they had damage to that part of the brain that triggers emotions, right? So what he found was, because of this, they had a really difficult time making any decisions, including and especially purchase decisions. So for them, they couldn't feel strongly enough about one option versus another option, right? So even if something as stupid and simple as, hey, what would you like for dinner tonight? Would you like salmon or meatloaf? They couldn't answer. Because they'd be like, well, salmon, that's so healthy. That sounds great. But meatloaf, so delicious. But salmon, I get my omega-3s. But meatloaf, it reminds me of grandma making me meatloaf. And they would go back and forth and back and forth and back, but they would waffle. They would waffle endlessly. They couldn't feel strongly enough about anything. So what does that tell you about your site visitors? What does that tell you about your readers? It tells you you better be evoking an emotional response out of them, or they're not going to feel strongly enough about filling out your form, signing up for your webinar, downloading your white paper, talking to your sales team. You must evoke an emotional response if you want to drive leads. Decisions are based off of emotions, and then we rationalize them. It's the exact opposite of what we all feel, right? We all think we're in full control. We all think we're totally logical. No one is going to get me based on my emotions. But that's how it works. That is how the brain works. Emotions are a necessary ingredient in decision making. And if you, through your content, through your trade show booth, through your video, through your podcast, through your blog, whatever content you're producing, if you can evoke an emotional response, and it's the emotion that you want to be driving in them, you're going to increase your chances of driving a lead. Okay, so what I want you to do is think of this as a framework. We've talked about a lot of different ways of driving leads today, right? But think of it as a lead generation framework. So we have things that are very audience focused, like IP detection and addressing their specific questions as they hit your content. We have content specific tactics, such as proprietary, original research, using databases, content atomization, online tools. We have a lot of behavioral tools now to work with. We have scroll mapping, heat click mapping, reducing friction, session recordings, right? All of these behavioral intelligence tools. Neuroscience, evoking an emotional response. CTAs, the many, many different ways that we can use CTAs, whether it's behaviorally triggered CTAs, whether it's contextually relevant CTAs, exit intent CTAs, right? A lot of this is based off of the audience or behavior, neuroscience, right? It all ties together. So this is the framework that I want you to walk away with today. Very actionable. A lot of these things you can start doing today. A lot of these things you can start doing with your next blog post, right? So very actionable, and I want you to take action. To my next slide. You must come up with a plan. I've been to 1 million of these conferences. Lots of fantastic ideas, right? You walk away totally jazzed, you're totally fired up. You have learned a ton of stuff. And what happens when you get back to the office? What happens when you get back to work? You get busy. And you don't do any of it, right? I've experienced this 1 million times, right? I've been on retreats where I've seen this happen. Unless there is a 30-day plan where you know exactly who's going to do what, by when, with what budget, it ain't going to happen. I've seen this. I've been to the rodeo before. So trust me, this works. When you commit to a 30-day plan, this works. So I want you to answer this. I want you to say, what action are you going to take? By when? Who needs to be involved? It may be you, but it may be others as well. It might be a team, right? Do you need a developer involved? Do you need a designer involved? Do you need a copywriter involved? Do you need an editor involved? Who do you need involved? What budget is going to be required? And where's that budget going to come from? Can you grab that budget from something that's not working today? How will you measure success? And then, here's the key. This works like magic. If you ever want to figure out what to do next, use this decision matrix. It works like magic. So what I want you to do is list all of your ideas on the left, right? Brainstorm all of your ideas. They're all great ideas, right? But then I want you to assess them based on how quickly can we implement this? How easily can we implement this? What's the cost of implementing this? Is this going to drive a lot of leads, a few leads, a lot of revenue, little revenue? What's the ROI? What's the projected ROI? And just don't spend a lot of time on it. Just green, yellow, red. Green, yellow, red. and you will find what you need. If you have a trade show coming up that's very time sensitive, it has to be fast, right? It has to be fast. So anything that's red, even if all the others are green, it's not going to work for that initiative. I'm telling you, this works like a charm in every situation that you have lots of ideas. You have to figure out what to do first. I would recommend this. So running out of time, do want to let you know, if you want to download a free chapter of my book, just go to tomshapiro.com/download/Digimarcon. Also, if you want a full free copy, I'm happy to provide it to you. Just come up afterwards, let me know where to send it, and I'll be happy to send you a copy. We'll pay for shipping, everything. And that's for everyone here. Obviously, you're all very interested in leads. We want to empower you to get more leads. So, absolutely. So, thank you very, very much.